All right. Just wanted to let some time go by and get some people on. We're getting a few more people adding on to the scenario. See, Willem just jumped on, and Zach, is this Zach Mason? Is that who Zach is?
Maybe Zach Siegel is trying to get on.
Zach Siegel. Is that who Zach is?
Yeah. Hey, Ed. I was able to unmute you.
Yeah, no worries. That's cool. I'm just trying to see who I have. When people just have their first name, it's sometimes hard. So, cool. All good. We're working on some video, and Kristen's working on some data that we can go over. We have a few people jumping on. We had an awesome day on the water today. 5 races, and we were at the dock by 3. I think we had an interesting day. The forecast may or may not have been accurate. We thought it was maybe going to be breezier early. We had a 4th race was crazy shifty. I think Jungle Ball, the top mark, might have been something I heard. So I think one of the big things that we talked about yesterday was the going wing, and I think today ended up being a pretty big wing day. And so hopefully we get a couple other people online. Willem has been awesome at one, just sharing, and 2, showing us, how good they can be at wing and how valuable it is. But we also have some upwind stuff that we worked on. So I think to start off, while Kristen's working on getting more data downloaded, but don't forget, you can still send him your links, your data. If you would download it yourself, you can shoot that to him. He has put his contact information into the chat box here, so you can do that. He's also put the data, so you can jump on there and look at anyone's data that's in the system right now. And I know there's some good teams that have either taken the trackers or downloaded their data. So definitely take advantage of that. You can click on that link in the chat. If you want to get your data involved, you can do that by shooting it over to Kristen, or even today's data. If you don't get it to him till tomorrow, he can grab that because it's being saved saved on your Velocitech. If you have a Race Geek or other instrument, you can definitely jump on and get that data as well, or he can help you with that. Why don't we get Roy getting some video up so we can talk about some things. There is some very good stuff about, he's got some upwind things that are very good. Unfortunately, we had a drone incident today, so we don't have as much as we would like, but he's going to show some upwind stuff, I think, first. Roy, you want to jump in here? And
yeah. So what I did this today was some longer upwinds. So we followed, rather than trying to get shorter with a bunch of different boats, we tried following a few boats for longer. So get these side by side here and get some zoom going. So what I'm interested in from this is hearing from these guys. So this is the first place and the third place teams. And I saw that Willem was on. Do we have people from 1037 on the Zoom call?
so it's Jennifer, Chris Kostinecki's team, and then Imperia. Is anybody on from those teams?
I'm here. Willem's here. But...
So Willem, it's not your teams, but maybe Willem can talk about some of the upwind things. I think if you look here, and I know from Kristen looking at the data, speed was obviously your biggest friend, no matter what today. Going upwind, first of all, how was your rig set? I'm guessing most people were pretty similar. Where were you on the rig and on versus base?
We went out at 4 and 3, and then we went to 5 and 4, and then we went down to 2 and 1 towards the end. So we got out there. We went, so we went. That's with Doyle. We were at 4 and 3, and then we got out. It was a little windier than we thought, so we went to 5 and 4. I think we were at even 6 and 5 for a little bit, and then quickly went down to back to 4 and 3 and 2 and 1 at the end.
So that fourth race, it got a lot squirrelier. So I'm guessing that's when you wanted to get a little more light on the rig.
Yeah.
Yeah. So River just jumped on. River, can you chime in? We have your boat, which is the 1037 gray main.
Hey.
Where were your settings on the day?
We started the day at 7 and 6, and then we went down to 5 and 4.
4 and 3 later.
And then we jumped all the way down to 4 and 3 for the last 2 races.
Okay, so with what Willem said, you seems like you were probably a step above him for the day. He jumped around too, but sounds like he got to 6 and 5 and down to 2 and 1 at one point. What were you seeing with the rig, and why did you feel like you needed to be as tight as you were, with your setup?
I'm more looking at the breeze, so I think Augie could tell you what the rig looked like a little more.
Yeah.
Anyone from your team. Yep.
We're also a lighter team. So for us being like raked back a little bit, or more turns on, is going to depower us a little bit more than some of the other teams, because I think we're about like
680.
Yeah,
685.
Yeah. So that's something that I always have in the back of my mind, in terms of like settings, is like where we are in terms of weight. And I think that Tommie and I kind of like agreed on where we were going with the settings. And
that makes a good point. Very good point is your weight. And it also proves that, this boat is very, very friendly with different weight that you can overcome being light by, tightening the rig. So that, you hear some people in breeze, and we had decent breeze today. You want to get to 400 pounds on the rail, but you guys kind of proved a little different, because how much do you think you guys have on the rail?
I'm 180 and Tommie's what, 154? So not 200. I mean, not 400.
Yeah, not 400. Yeah. So, and of course, Davis Island, you're playing shifts and doing more as well. So, Roy's drawn some lines here and some things, trying to show some. Imperia is the other boat, and we know Imperia is got some big guys on the rail, and John has mentioned they're definitely on the heavier side.
For reference, this is during race 2. Both of these are the same. The second upwind leg on race 2.
So where's your traveler here, Augie? Think you're all the way up, or where do you think you're playing the traveler?
Race 2. No, actually, I think we were probably about like 3-4 inches above center line. So traveler's pretty low. I was playing the backstay a lot during the races. So generally speaking, like in the first couple races, I mean, traveler fairly low, playing the backstay a lot. Backstay in Cunningham. Just making sure, because when we got the overbend, like that was when we were trying, like we didn't want to go past the point of like getting a lot of overbend wrinkles, but we were just making sure that like that's like we were bringing it to that point and then playing it from there. Because obviously we don't have a lot of weight on the rail, so a lot of the times in the puffs we're fully depowered. Honestly, in the first, I think like first and second race was I felt like was the windiest, right?
Yep.
I almost felt like we should have gone up on the turns.
And where do you think you were on that one? You was max 7.6 that were you
Yeah.
were for the day.
We were 7.6 on that one.
Yeah.
And honestly, I almost felt like we should have gone up. Because
So
the majority of the
Chris is a driver. Was it a decent groove or a fairly tight groove? How was it able to drive in that with the rig tight and probably a little overpowered?
It felt fine. It
Yeah.
felt good. Probably I felt like I was in the group.
So you had a good groove. You didn't feel like you could fall out of it very easily.
Yeah.
Plenty of power. Yeah.
Yeah, the boat felt like it was moving.
Yeah, we had our course tune like pretty cranked in that race. Like we cranked the main and then put the course tune on. And I think that kind of helped us be able to depower as much as we wanted.
Hey Augie, this is Kristen Berry. Question for you. Did you guys have an Upwind paddle wheel boat speed target that you were using? I recognize that, you know, none of us have probably calibrated our paddle wheels sufficiently to be able to really exchange that data. But did you have something that you were using as an Upwind speed target?
I'm going to be completely honest. I did not look at the boat speed once today. I would say when I looked at it, it was generally over 5, but that's complete. Like I would say in general, I was more looking towards. So yeah, River, were you looking at it?
5.4 and 5.6 were kind of our averages, and then some transitions were tough for us, and we'd go to 4.9. But other than that, nothing below 5, pretty much.
Yeah. So Augie, you can explain. You're a scow sailor and a 470 sailor. So the paddle wheel is not something that you're used to looking at.
not so much.
Okay, so these are good. And then jib trim and in haul. Where were you there, and what were your guides that you used to play with that?
With the Doyle J9, you kind of just in haul to the cabin house, and then in the bigger puffs, and when we felt really overpowered, or if we we're trying to build speed, I'd be playing the in haul more, letting it off out of the tack. I wouldn't put it on right away. I'd put some of it on and then slowly start going more and more. I'd always have my lure cheat pretty much to 95% out of a tack. And then the last 5% either I would do or I'd tell Augie to do, and it was really blowing. But just never letting the in haul off all the way though. Always having a little bit of tension on that windward cheat, I felt like.
Yeah. And then Chris, do you have a heel angle you are working on, or is it a feel thing for you, or what's your guide from that?
Just angle of heel, just trying to keep the boat level. You know, yeah. I don't have a guide per se, but I'm just trying to keep the boat angle of heel pretty consistent and fairly.
Do you look at the horizon for that, or is this just something you're used to and everyone's happy, so you're not changing things?
Yeah, I'm not sure how to answer. I don't know about the horizon, but I mean, I'm looking at the boat, just trying to keep it flat-ish.
Yeah.
Or consistently at one angle.
Yeah. So sounds like feel and just not moving. You're not going up and down. You're just
trying to calm the boat down as much as possible and get in the groove.
Yep.
Just definitely finding the one thing I'm finding really helpful is this kind of, putting the tiller on the deck and just trying to straighten the driving and not, I used to always kind of drive too much, and now I'm doing that, and that seems to help.
Kind of keeping it calm by putting that on the deck so you can't move it as much.
Right.
Yeah. And then are the guys talking to you? Or are you talking to the guys when you get overpowered or vice versa? Is there communication with that, or is you have a quiet boat and everyone's just getting it done?
No, I think these guys are really good about talking about the puffs and the lulls and we're getting better and better about just anticipating that.
How far in are you calling the puffs? I guess, River, did you say you were calling them?
I try and give them consistent pressures holding like this, and then if we were gonna change, I'd give them like a 10-second or 5 seconds sometimes at start. Trying not to talk too much on the boat to keep everything calm. So,
Yep.
Want to be constantly giving them pressure calls because it probably won't be as accurate as you think. And as long as you're filling them in on the lulls and the big puffs, I think that's as good as you can help.
Yep. So Tommie, I know you're a coach and obviously a good sailor, and you're being really quiet right now. So what are you doing to mold this team? Because I know that's one of the reasons why you're there. And what are you seeing of why they're successful in this first day of this event?
No, well, of course, they are all very good sailors and they are all learning the boat. I am just trying to help as much as I can, but also letting them do what they know how to do. Maybe I help a bit on the modes, I help a little bit on the settings, also on maybe the fleet management and trying to help Augie as much as I can with the tactics and get involved more of a support, and also trying to bring like a system for them and tell them my humble experience in the class or in other boats, so that in the next few days or weeks that I will not be with them, they can work towards a certain goal, and having a system and organizing the races on a certain way and having plans and having very specific calls and what to talk in each part of the upwind, what to talk anticipating a mark. I am trying to focus more on that. And then as regards the controls on board, I am more focused on the jib halyard and on the van. As we know that we are having usually the settings more tight. One thing that we try to do is on the lows, I try to be active with the van to be able to flatten the lower part of the main that we are going to have pretty deep because we are having the shrouds tight, as well as hopefully having a bit more sag by putting a bit more van, and the same with the jib halyard. When we get in a low, I try to ease the jib halyard a little bit in order to have a thinner entry and try to put the draft of the jib back and compensate that extra rig tension that we are having.
So do you give some of this advice, or do you ask them, just in your style, do you ask them, what they're feeling first, or how do you go approach this type of coaching when you're on the water with them?
No, like as regards the control lines, the van and the halyard, I just play them and I just tell them what I am doing, and maybe Augie will tell me, or River can tell me, okay, yeah, that's fine, do not ease it more. I definitely try to communicate every move I make as regards that. And then as regards the other thing, we like the general planning and everything, we try to be consistent with our routine and our system of having a debrief every day and splitting the debrief and talking about that.
Yeah. What do you think are the two biggest keys, and this is all team here, two biggest keys to, the great day that you had today?
I think that a lot of it came down to just connecting the pressures. Obviously, we had a lot of angle changes in terms of where the breeze was coming from, but the real key to the day, personally, what I felt was being able to connect pressure and knowing when to take maybe a lower angle to pressure. It was one of those times where you're always looking for the next puff or the next shift. And sometimes you would have to take that, you'd have to take a knock to the next shift. And I think it was kind of being really eyes outside of the boat looking up the course or just looking behind you, especially on the downwinds, making sure that you know where that next pressure is coming from. One of the things that I always like to do, especially pre-start, is just stand up in the boat. And just by standing up, you're extending your like horizon of where you can see the breeze by a couple hundred feet. So that was one thing that I was always doing pre-start. It's just making sure you're looking up and just knowing what's happening next.
Yeah. So one of the things we talked about on the water with some of the coaches was, one of the things about Davis Island is you want to try to make sure you get on the long lift, as much as possible. Obviously, it sounds like it's, simple, but, you're saying by standing up, by doing some things, by looking and not just taking the shift, I'm guessing that's what you're doing, is you're looking for the longest runway on the lifted tack in clear air.
Yeah, or the fastest way to the longest runway.
Correct.
Like you can get off a starting line, be lifted, but maybe that's not where the longest lift is. So just finding your way to where the longest shift is going to be.
Are you taking this approach like you would in the lakes when you're sailing scows?
It's a little bit different. I think that the breeze patterns and these shifts are holding a little bit differently, but they are relatively similar. This breeze is, you want to be on the bottom side of it. So I don't know if anyone's heard about like the cat claw or something like that. So on the leeward side, you get more lift, and on the windward side of a puff, you get actually more of a knock. So it's a little bit different than like a persistent shift, which we would see in like some sea breeze conditions and stuff like that, where the farther you go, the better it gets. That's not the case here, where when you see a puff, you generally want to be on the leeward side of it to gain as much lift as you can. And that's something that you can really take advantage of here. If you position yourself well in a puff, you can take the most out of every single shift that you can get. And that's what I think we as a team did a really good job of today.
So can you see this video or the still right now, but of what Roy's showing with the pressure?
Yeah.
And what he's basically showing what you just said, but how would you approach, like, where would you want to be on this little section here? Middle, or would you aim for a right or left? You said you want to be on the leeward side, but where do you think in this situation you probably don't see it as well as this is right here, but now you can. Is this what you feel like you're seeing and reacting to?
A little bit. It's kind of hard to like see with the diagram, but it seems to me like from like the middle left and up, it kind of seems that there's like a pressure line, and like the pressure line is kind of building that way, and it's pointing towards the horizon, and that kind of shows to me if it's pointing towards like the top right. I don't know. It's really hard to describe from. So I don't know, the farthest left boat on the screen,
Yep.
And then pointing up almost to like where land is, or on the right side. Sorry, on the right side. If you draw a line from there, you can see a pressure, like a pressure line. There's a reflective part, and then you can see the pressure. You would want to be tacking kind of underneath that to be able to get the most amount of lift, and that's where
So you would say like this might be the time.
Yeah. So
left-hand boat,
right,
attacking soon.
Yeah, right as they get to that pressure line is probably when they want to get to tack, and this kind of reflects back on what I was saying earlier as when you're looking for the pressures and trying to get to the next lift, maybe this person, I don't know where they are on the race course and where they're trying to get to, but if you're tacking at the leeward side of that, you might get more lift especially if you're trying to get, like, if you're trying to get to the right. So all these boats are on port and you're trying to get to the right. You don't want to extend into that puff because you're going to get more knock, or you're going to get more lift out of that because it's an increase in velocity. So you want to be on the bottom side of that to gain the most lift that you possibly can.
Now, does anyone else have any questions? I understand that, but I want to make sure other people do. And he's explaining some things that are difficult for sure. And you know, I know it's also one of those things where it's like, okay, well, yes, that's easy for him to say afterwards, but obviously he proved it on the water as well. Does anyone have any questions for him on, you know, how he is looking at that and what he's talking about? So, I mean, I think you did explain it very well. I just want to make sure that nobody else is, and no one else has any other questions about that. But, you know, this is definitely a crazy place. Lot of shifts, but in a persistent breeze, you're still going back and forth. And, you know, I think you guys obviously proved, you know, you could go fast and do things, and that makes things a lot easier on the race course. So definitely nice work on that. And I think one thing to think about also is, you know, this is a team that's, you know, gearing up, you know, for the Worlds. That's why they're here. And they're also taking some pretty smart approach to it by bringing Tommie on to coach and, you know, having, you know, some good guys. And so, you know, Chris has been here before, but one of the things Chris, I think, makes sure he does is he works with, you know, some good guys to make him better, but to make the whole team better. And I think that's something that, you know, you're proving here. So
I just
tomorrow
if I
yeah,
could
go ahead,
add
Chris.
one thing, it has been fantastic having Tommie here because he's kind of like gotten us his style with the debrief and everything on the day, like just measurable things that we can break down, like and improve, whether it's, you know, how we approach the line or how we approach the top third, or communicating like what we're going to do when we get to the weather mark, like what's the end goal. Yeah. And that helps everyone on the team kind of understand, like, okay, this is what we're doing here. Like, so he's been excellent. I would recommend him highly, and he's been a lot of fun too. So thank you.
How have your starts been? I know I've seen some and they've been very good, but I haven't seen all of them. So have your starts been pretty good too?
I would say they've been hit or miss.
Okay.
We've definitely had a few starts where we get off the line going really well. We hold our lane, and then other starts we're scrambling after the start. But I mean, I think the majority of starts today we got off the line well. But
yeah, I would say.
So when you're
a few of the starts where the breeze kind of went left and you're like having a hard time actually getting to the line, and then it seemed like the breeze came back right or slightly, and then fortunately we were able to tack out. Yeah. And go.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's the scramble then, right? So when you're scrambling, like you say, how were you able to make it happen? Did you have to create the tack out, or were you lucky enough that the tack out was there, or combination?
I feel like it was a combination of both of those, but a lot of the times we kind of had to create our own zone and create our own lane. We've been working really well together as a team to be able to make sure that we're playing all the controls well enough where even if we have a narrow slot between two boats, we're working together with like jib trim, with Cunningham, with Vang, backstay, everything, with steering, that we're making sure that we're holding our lane as long as possible. I think that we've been able to do that well enough to be able to hold our position when we want to, and then take people out when we need to. So in terms of like pinching people off or putting the bow down, getting over someone, that's like something that we're communicating with everyone, and that's really been helping us.
Yeah, I think changing gears and making sure you have power and that type of thing is huge. Maybe we can watch this start because this is you guys closest
This
to
is
the
from
boat
yesterday.
from yesterday. I don't remember calling you over yesterday, so I'm guessing you weren't. So I would call that a good start.
It says right there.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Send us a picture. That one's pretty
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, I think that's the keeper. Yeah. And of course, I think that's a huge thing, is position, and what you're talking about is you're playing everything so that your options are always open, and you get down speed and you got to power up the boat and talk, and when you make a move, everyone's doing the same thing, or doing what's right for the boat to get you off the line. And so I think, you definitely want to keep that one right there. So perfect. All right, Roy, what's next? Guys, thank you so much. This is huge for everybody. I think you make it sound easy, but I understand. I know you guys know it's not. You're lucky to gel, and what it sounds like is happening also is you guys are thinking like you're respecting each other's abilities, and that's being proven by what you're doing. And you have a good owner, good driver, and you guys are doing your jobs well, so it makes life a lot easier. So I think that's huge. So
Before we move on to downwind wind stuff, I have one more question about upwind. Going back to these videos, what the two boats that we have, the side-by-sides of, said was that Willem's boat said that he was set a little bit looser. But if you look at the videos here, if we go to both the side videos and the side view and the astern view, we see two interesting things. So take me a moment to get Zoom going.
So this is John Heaton's boat on the right and Chris Kostinecki's boat on the left.
So there's two things that I see. One is that Willem's boat is
That's not Willem, though. That's Zeke and
on the right.
John Heaton. Yeah.
Okay. Well, Zeke and John Heaton on the right. Their leach is much tighter. They have a lot less twist. And the other thing that I noticed was if we scoot to the side view, so where it's not blurry. There we go.
Sure.
There. The other thing I noticed that goes along with that is that it seemed to me that 169 had a little more mass bent and more overbend wrinkles. So I'm going to sort of draw them on here because I'm not sure how much you can really see them.
While he's drawing those, Augie, you mentioned you might be back a little bit further on the rake. Are you back further than most people because your weight? Your forestay length?
We're at 58 and a half on the forestay length.
So that to me sounds like it's just a little bit back, but not crazy back.
Yeah, that honest, like I'm pretty new to these boats, but that is definitely
Willem recommendation.
Yeah, Willem definitely helped us out. He was actually out with us the first day that we were out on the water, and he helped us. I mean, me personally, like out a ton. I mean, being able to understand what like the sequence of everything
what you're looking for, and yeah.
Yeah.
No, Willem's obviously awesome at all this, and I know he's helping you with sales and things like that. And you mentioned it, and I think it's weight based as well, where you'd be back a little bit. And does that give you a lot more helm, Chris, from what you've been other settings you've been doing, or just?
Yeah, I mean, no, I mean the helm just felt good. The boat just felt really balanced. So, I would have thought so, but yeah.
I think that if
I'm not sailing the boat enough either.
Yeah.
I think that if you have it depowered enough, and like even though that we're light, I think that if you have the right balance between how much you have pressing on the jib and how much you have pressing on the main, those are the two forces that are working over the keel, and so that's like your focal point. And if you have equal forces over those, then you're not going to have much helm on the rudder. And that's like our job as the crew, is to make sure that we're trying to have equal forces on the jib and equal forces on the main, to make sure that we're taking the load off of him. And I think Willem points this out a lot, is like, if the driver is having a problem steering the boat, generally speaking, it's the tuning of the boat and not the driver. You have to kind of see what you can do to like solve that problem, and that's something that I do on the upwinds and stuff, is asking like, what can we do different? Like, what can we do to make it better?
I would say one other thing that it was tuning into more is just my helm downwind, and getting the angle of heel precise, so I had no helm.
Yeah.
Something I kind of, something that I tuned into more today, like just really focusing on driving in the helm and keeping that calm, and just seems to work. So that's kind of new for me.
Yeah.
Or
so
I'm tuning into that more, and that seems to be a good thing.
for sure. Do you have any other comments on this, Roy? Or?
No, just wondering specifically if they have any comments on backstay and the presence of different amount of overbend wrinkles and sail shape here.
What do you thought? Go ahead.
We probably have more fun.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say just using your controls to make sure that like you can control the overbend a little bit with Cunningham, and that's something you can pay attention to. But I mean, for us, I think it's just making sure that we're preemptive with our overbend. Like in these two situations, we're not in the same breeze, so I think it's pretty like, you're not comparing. Yeah, we're not really comparing the exact same things, because the breeze is very different today, obviously. So I think that like, yes, that they are different there, but maybe sometimes, and obviously they have a little bit more weight on the rail, so that's something that can bend the mast a little bit more.
Yeah, but you feel that you used a fair amount of backstay though?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think in what race is this from?
This is
Two.
the second race.
Yeah, I mean, we cranked the course tune on, because I like to be able to have enough play, and I mean, I basically max it out in the puffs. I was maxing it out in the puffs.
What do you use any measures to know how what that maximum is? Is that the overbend wrinkles?
No, literally until I can't pull it anymore. That for me.
The course tune is like super critical.
Yeah.
You have to crank on the course tune when it's windy, and people under anticipate that. So you wail on the course tune. I mean, less yesterday, or less today than yesterday, but you're putting that on, and you have to kind of go upwind with the main sheet on, and then do the course tune.
Yeah, and you guys have a little bit shorter backstay. You don't have a stock one. You're basically a foot short, which is where most people are, which gives you a little more leverage. I only know this because I made it. But you're not super short. You're not super short. You're just, the new short. And so that gives you the ability to have the purchase that you need for that. Now, one thing I'd probably would think about for, this isn't Chris's boat, this is a charter boat, but is maybe going to maybe a tad shorter to a kind of 2 feet shorter, a 23-foot backstay if you're going to keep sailing, with a light crew, to give yourself a little more ability to do that. And that'll give you a little more leverage for that.
The ability to like play the range is key.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Today I really felt that. I mean, I'm just kind of getting into this boat, so but I mean, I can definitely tell you that the number one thing that I was playing besides the main was the course tune.
Yeah.
And I might be wrong. Like maybe I probably should have been playing the Traveler a lot more today after talking to a few people. I think that was one thing that I lacked in playing, but I mean, I think that the course tune was one of those things where it's, if you're not playing it, you're not doomed.
No, it's definitely important. And I think, you're playing all the control lines, and that's really important on these boats. I remember the very first time I sailed a regatta on these boats, and I was like, really, we're adjusting the outhaul and the jib, halyard, and the, you just keep adjusting everything, and every little bit makes a big difference. And if you're not staying on top of that, you're gonna be, not sailing well. And so, and that's where the whole team is working. So, all right.
Thank you guys.
Yep. Nice job, guys. Roy, did you have downwind things? And
Yep.
we'll a little bit of this and.
Okay. We gotta go eat.
So this video is a conglomeration of a bunch of different transitions and people driving away into lanes they think are good from the
Willem, are you on? Let me just look real quick.
Yeah, I'm here. I'll miss Carlos right now, but
Carlos?
yeah.
Okay. So one of the things he's showing here is the wing and the jibe to wing. So the left boat is Mr. Pitiful. The red kite, I'm not sure who that is, but
That's Al Poindexter, I believe.
okay. And then there's a far red one's probably Kostinecki.
Yeah.
A lot of wing today. So what were you guys looking at? Is it, to do wing? I know Kostinecki one time jibe to wing, and he literally moved, down like 20 plus degrees, which obviously was the reason why he did it. How important was the wing today with, it seemed like you guys were going wing like the whole way down.
Yeah, there was some big puffs, and if you could get into one, sometimes there's a puff to leeward of you, and you could do a full jibe and go through that puff, but you could also go to a different one wing or the other and stay in that puff a lot longer. So it was important to kind of try to acknowledge what kind of shift there was happening and take the most advantage of it with doing the right sort of maneuver.
So you basically were going wing or, wing to stay in the puff and then wing back to stay in the puff.
Potentially, yeah. So I'm trying to keep the boat pointing at the finish line or the leeward marks. So this is, that's a nice, really nice jibing the kite to wing by Felder and team, John Heaton. They turn the boat quick. Will rotates aggressively. It pops and he very quickly to ease. And instantly as soon as they're in wing, he's talking boat left, boat right. That's nice. You gotta, just trying to think aloud, you have to determine how the other boats behind you are going to hurt you. Sometimes if they're really close, you may choose to do a full jibe and get out of their bad air quickly. Sometimes, obviously, if we round the weather mark and the offset, we're all on starboard, and we jibe the kite to wing, we are in their dirt for longer than we would be if we jibed the main to wing. And the least amount of dirt would be to do a full jibe. I think we made a couple times a mistake of letting the main, jibing the main to wing, letting the main kind of fly across. And what happens is the kite collapses. And so it's really important to just trim the main in, pull the boom down to fix the battens, and very slowly let it out. And then you never lose the kite. So there's some tricks to it. Jibing the kite to wing, the main is never coming across, so you don't have that issue.
So Willem, we switched out a Windex on someone because the top little thing broke, and so the Windex was, yesterday was made it difficult. So, we talk about our Windex and being so important on the wing.
Yeah.
And so, number one, what are you looking for in the Windex? And number two, obviously the trimmer's looking at it, but is the driver looking at it as well?
If the driver is very experienced, he can look at the Windex a little more frequently, but I think it's best for the trimmer to make those calls. Maybe the tactician every once in a while is just looking up, but as a whole, like right here, the Windex should be pointing somewhere between John Heaton's head and the backstay. So it's pretty much like a J24 angle here. And if we go by the lee, you're going slow. And if you get the Windex pointing much to the right of, more to the right at 3 o'clock, say, now it's very difficult to carry the kite. So you got to kind of constantly it's so shifty out there. We got to be talking about the shift and talking the driver into keeping that Windex at the same sort of spot between John and the backstay. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I'm going to put Rich on the spot here because Rich Witzel, you jump on. You're driving for Willem. And I know I've sailed with Rich, and Rich is a good natural driver. But he's also hasn't sailed the 70s a ton really this year. Rich, what are you looking for and listening for?
So I'm lucky that I have Willem. He's obviously excellent at giving directions in the wing. So I'm following his instructions, but I know how important it is to be able to look up when I can to just see where that Windex is. So I'm trying to do it, but as Willem said, he's really in the driver's seat. I think downwind with the wing, and I'm just trying to make sure that we're executing well.
Is he calling up and down? And what are your guides when you're not looking up?
So I look at the sail and how it's filling and trying to anticipate, where I'm feeling the breeze on my back and where the guys are calling the puffs, what the next move will be. But Willem's really good. He calls right, left, tries to give very clear directions, recognizing that I'm somewhat new to the, that style of sailing. So, I think we're doing a pretty good job, always better. But as I said, very lucky to and happy to have Willem, helping me get familiar with this.
So Willem mentioned, in the jibe, 2-wing with the spinnaker and it popping. I know it's obviously easy, for him to say this, but for you to listen and understand and translate that, how easy has it been for you to figure out that pop that to then to straighten out, and now you're going wing?
It's getting easier. We spend a lot of time, practicing the wing, just the rate of turn, the difference between the kite to wing and the main to wing. So I think, the first is to just get a good sense of what type of turn is required. I mean, that's really critical. If you need to do a slow turn when you're going main to wing, and obviously a little faster turn when you're doing kite to wing. So that to me has been the most important thing that I've had to focus on, is making sure we're doing that right. And if you do that right, plus you have the kite trimmed well, it sort of, I think, just works well. It pops by itself, but the rate of turn, at least from my impression, is critical.
I think one of the things that Willem mentioned was, he's telling you, okay, we're doing this maneuver, you're not moving, you're staying on this side of the boat. And I think that's obviously important for you to know, because when you're new, it's obviously hard. You're like, okay, what am I doing? Because you're
Right.
new. I think that's a huge thing, is communication. So he's telling you, okay, we're going to turn, but you're not going anywhere, and I think sometimes we forget that. Right. And so I think that's a pretty important thing too.
Willem's very good about, a lot of communication on the boat continuously. And I think you probably can't communicate too much in that context, and just reminding, you're not shifting sides. This is what we're doing. So it's really constant communication the whole time.
And I think people that don't know, may not know Willem, or they only know him off the water, he's calm, so it's if you have a conversation with Willem, he's calm. I think that's how he always is. And I think that's what's good, and it translates with how well he does with the communication, that it just, you don't get excited because he doesn't get excited. He tells you what's going to happen, and it's going to happen. So I think that's huge, and something that people want to, pay attention to as well, is when you're communicating, it's just, everything's just the same thing. And there's never going to be any problems. Of course, when Willem's trimming, there isn't going to be, but I think that's big. Willem, is there anything else you want to add here? We're going to start to wrap up, but I know you've been a huge help, and there are things we're missing. We're seeing a lot of wing today, and we'll see what we get tomorrow. But is there any other little tips just to throw in as we wrap up today?
No, that's about it. I just think work on your communication and try to be clear, and it's so tricky out there going upwind and downwind. Just do your best to, some of those teams, I talked to a couple teams, they were struggling today, and it's just like, do your best to point the boat at the mark. If you're going upwind, try to do your best to sail on the lifted tack. And for the most part, it's quite obvious. And downwind, it's even more obvious because you're pointing more at those marks. So just make sure you're on the favored jibe and fight through all this. It's a little painful out there, but just keep fighting. Thanks, Ed. We got to run. Thanks.
Yep. Just have a quick, are you ever able to show the non-pro boats and provide feedback? I know Willem will. I know he's got to run, but I think we need to just, this is Sarah's team. I think we just need to talk about the best way to do this, and let's figure out how to put this together so we can all learn from it. The big thing there.
Ed, it's KB.
Go ahead.
I actually think I can answer to that question a little bit. So, the data is actually pretty revealing, and we had a good spread of the trackers and the Velocitex today. So while I don't want to drag this on for another 30 minutes, everybody wants to get to dinner. I understand that. I think check that link that I put into the chat. I'll also send it out to everybody in the email. you can really see what's going on between the best boats and boats that are in the middle and boats that are at the back of the pack, because we had a good spread today. And I really want to say thanks to Chris Kostinecki and John Heaton for being willing to share their data, and then everybody else who's, you know, sharing their trackers, because it helps them get faster. You're going to see that there. And if we want, we can spend time on Tuesday night kind of digging into this data. Race 2 of today is really revealing both upwind and downwind. And there's some good nuggets in there. So we'll be able to get to, you know, the non-pro boats and provide some really good feedback there, because it's quite revealing where the problems are. Just to summarize that for everybody, pat on the back to all of the tacticians today. There was clearly group think. All of the tracked boats were more or less going in the same direction, more or less all day long today. That's top to bottom across the range. Boats that were first, boats that were 16th, were really tracking through more or less the same direction, calling the same shifts. But what you'll see in the data is their VMGs are radically different. And so this comes down to, a lot of what we heard from some of the folks on Chris's boat, that, you know, it's about gear shifting and about making the right changes in small increments to make, keep the boat at its peak performance all the time. Anyway, that's the snapshot on the data. And I think, for the sake of time, I can share that in notes after the fact.
Yeah, I think we ran out of time because of great information. And so, yeah, Tuesday, let's do a little bit more on what Chris is talking about. But if you listen to Willem and you listen to, all of the guys, the goal is to be on the lift attack, always going towards the mark on the lift attack, on the head attack downwind. And it's just now trying to figure out how to do that, how to get to that puff that's going to keep you on the long lift attack upwind. How are you going to get, downwind? Wing helps a lot with these boats, that you can, go wing to wing to stay in that puff as long as possible. And I know sometimes, you forget that, hey, we really, really want to work really hard to stay in that puff downwind. And so on the 70, in these conditions, you can do the wing back and forth, and that helps a lot. So we're going to wrap things up. I would like, Sarah, let's talk tomorrow on the best way to figure out how to talk about this. And we will work on that for Tuesday. And I think that's pretty important. So thanks, everybody. If we don't have any other questions, we'll wrap it up. But it was an awesome day on the water today. Tomorrow, we're going to get 3 to 4 in before 2. And, it's great to have everyone contributing and on the water. And thank you, everybody. See you tomorrow.
Thanks, Ed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ed.
Thank you. We need to talk, Sarah.